Rise of Kingdoms is a complicated game. There are a lot of mechanics. There's PvE content, there's PvP content, there's commanders, there's technology, there's buildings, there's VIP, and that's only just the surface of it. And today, I will be making the new player guide. If you're a new player to Rise of Kingdoms, if you've just downloaded the game, if you're doing a jumper account, whatever it may be, today's guide is going to be the only guide you will ever need. I will go over literally every single mechanic in the game, from the museum to the commanders, to the formations, to building your city, training troops, whatever it is, I will be discussing it. So if you want to see a new player guide, or if you're just looking to get back into Rise of Kingdoms, or you're playing it for the first time, this is the video for you. I will start off by answering a question that is maybe something people will be asking, and that is, why should I even trust this random guy who's pretending that he knows everything about the game? And I think it comes down to a few things. First of all, I'm pretty similar to most players. I don't spend that much money on the game. I honestly don't play the game for hours upon hours on end, but I still do compete at a fairly high level. I'm in a fairly powerful kingdom. It's one of the higher ranked kingdoms in the game in terms of power, and we will talk about that later. And I've played the game for almost 3 years now. I think it's almost, if not over 3 years, 1,119 consecutive days. So I do know the majority of what I'm talking about, and most of my advice, especially about early game stuff, you can't go wrong with. So if you follow this guide and you follow the advice that I do give you, even though it is going to be a long one, you will be able to build your account in a very, very meaningful way, and it will be getting a really good progression level, and you should be able to speed up and progress faster than a lot of other players. Now, the first thing I would like to talk about is the starting civilization. This is something I always hear, which civilization is the best. I mean, Rise of Kingdoms is a game that should be all about civilizations, and I'll just put it out there, your civilization honestly doesn't matter that much, especially in the early game. The buffs are really, really minor, and if you're a new player, I usually just say go China or go Britain. If you're a very new player and you've never played the game before, I would just go with China. You get Sun Tzu, who's one of the best epic commanders in the game, and we'll talk about him later. You get a good 5% building speed bonus. It's not much, but it's nice. And you get more action points. Action points, if you don't know what they are like a currency you can use to do the PvE content in the game. So for example, using your commanders to kill barbarians will cost you action points, and they're really essential to getting yourself more resources, getting even gems, and also getting a lot of speed up. So if you want to be able to progress your account very fast and get speed ups, get gems, get resources, you need action points, and China is your best starting civilization. If you're watching this video and you have already started your account and you didn't choose China and you're maybe like 2 or 3 days in, honestly, I'd recommend restarting and picking China, unless you picked Britain. Britain you can get away with, you get a nice training speed bonus, and you get Boudica, who's good for killing barbarians, and I'll talk about her later as well. But in my opinion, China is the best starting civilization. As you progress, once you enter when you really start to fight other players, I recommend Ottoman civilization, and that's really as far as it gets. In the early game, until you pretty much have built up your city to the max level, use China, and then just switch to the Ottoman civilization and you're completely set. Civilizations in Rise of Kingdoms, they're not too impactful. It's all really small buffs. This special unit isn't going to be useful to you until the end game, so it's just these buffs and the initial commander that really does matter to you. Do keep in mind, if you switch civilizations, you won't actually get these commanders again. You can only get them from the gold chest, the legendary tavern, stuff like that. So make sure that if you are picking a civilization, you pick the one with Sun Tzu first, which is China. Otherwise, you won't be able to unlock him until a little bit later, and you won't get free levels on him, because if you picked a Sun Tzu, or if you picked China at the start of the game, your quests here, there will be Sun Tzu heads up for grabs as you build your city in this main quest line. So if you pick China, you'll get extra Sun Tzu levels, which is always nice. The next thing that a new player should know about is, what are commanders, what do they do, and how do they work? Because I'm talking all about these commanders, Sun Tzu, or these epic commanders, legendary commanders, I'm sure you've seen them, and maybe even elite and advanced commanders. And commanders, they're a little bit complicated until you fully wrap your head around it. A commander is pretty much just something that's going to make your troops stronger. In Rise of Kingdoms, there is a limited number of troops you can have out fighting at once. For most players, it's going to be like 400,000 if you spend money on the game, and that's a bit advanced. I won't talk about it much today, but commanders are really just something that you can lead your troops with. They're usually a historical figure, and they just give you damage and basically stats that make your troops stronger. You should note that commanders have different things about them though. Every single commander will have a level, some skills, and some talents, plus equipment and formation slots. Now, we'll just start off with the levels. Each commander can go up to level 60. Every single commander in the game can do that. And to get to level 60, you also have to level up their star level. Do keep in mind that as you level up the star level, you will unlock more skills. But once you hit star level 5 and star level 6, you will only get some talent points. Talent points are really just another way to give your commander more stats and actually allow you to make your troops even stronger. So as you can tell, commanders are really there just to make your troops much more powerful and keep increasing their strength. So the better your commanders, the better your troops. You should note that in Rise of Kingdoms, you can run 2 commanders in one march. So as you can see here, this march I'm running a Boudica and a Yi Song-Ye. My primary commander is my Boudica. It is the number 1 commander. It will use its skills first. The skill is the first ability here. As you can see, it says active skill and it's got a rage requirement. And then the secondary commander will use their skills as well. So in this situation, it will go Boudica's active skill and then Yi Song-Ye's active skill. You should note though that only the primary commander, so the number 1 commander of a march, so in that case before, Boudica, only her talents, only her star levels, and only her equipment and formations will count towards your march. For your secondary commander, the only thing that they do is they give you their skills. So if you have 2 level 60 commanders, it doesn't change anything, only the skills matter. So the primary commander should always be at level 60, and the secondary commander just needs to have all of their skills to be fully effective. This really means that if you're looking to run a commander on the open field or run a full march, as we would call it, you would take one commander to level 60, that will be your primary commander, and then you would take another commander to level 40, and that will be your secondary commander. The reason you go to level 40, well, as you level up your commanders and star them up, once they hit star level 4, they've gotten all of their skills unlocked. So anything after that is a waste of your stars here, your starlight sculptures, and a waste of your experience points, which are called tomes of knowledge. So don't level up commanders who are going to be secondaries past level 40, and you will know which commanders are secondaries as you progress in the game. And I will talk about some of them a little bit later, but that's definitely really important. A very big new player mistake is they make extra equipment they don't need. So for example, if I took this equipment on my Joan of Arc and I also used the equipment on my Matilda here, in one march, it wouldn't change anything. Equipment is literally just extra clothing you put on commanders to make them more powerful, but only the primary commander's equipment matters. So do know that you don't need to have 2 sets of equipment on one march, you only need 1 set, because the other commander's equipment will not matter. But if you're running 2 marches, whoever the primary commander is, the number 1 commander, and you can see who that is when you click on the march, their equipment will matter. So that's very important to know. There's no point leveling up most commanders past level 40, unless you are looking to run them as a primary, and some commanders just are not good primary commanders. As for skills on commanders, they are a little bit less complicated than primary and secondary commanders. The way they work is skills are just things that once again boost your troops, and every single commander, that is the epic tier and the legendary tier, will have 5 total skills. They'll have an active skill, and they'll have 3 passive skills, plus an expertise skill. The way you level up a skill is a little bit unique, and the way it works is you put a commander's sculptures into the commander, and the more sculptures you have, the more you can level up their skills. You should note that as a commander gets a higher skill level, the cost to upgrade them will be higher. So as you can see here with my Nebuchadnezzar, for me to level up his skill, it costs 50 of his sculptures, but if I look at a commander who doesn't have many sculptures in them, like my Richard here, it only costs 30, and the minimum cost is 10 gold heads. As you can see here with Constantine, he is only 10 to level up one of his skills. So that means as you level up a commander's skills, they will become progressively more expensive. You should also note that with the commander's skills, they are actually a little bit random. You can't pick which skills you do level up, and I will show you, for example, on a commander if I have one. So as you can see here with Constantine, I have enough to level up his skill one time, and I can't actually pick which skill it goes onto. I only have control of locking skills. So the way this works is if I lock this down, only the first skill or the second skill could get that skill point. And if I lock it more, only the first skill could get the skill point. But I can't do it, for example, where I lock the first skill and the second and third skill could get the point. So it literally just goes in order. Let's say I had all 4 skills unlocked. I could lock the 4th skill and then I have a 1 in 3 chance of getting it on one of these 3 skills that my cursor are on. I could then lock the 3rd skill and then I have a 1 in 2 chance, and then I could lock the final skill here and I'm guaranteed to get it on the active skill. This is important to note, so you can't pick your skills, and as proof right now, if I unlock all the skills and I upgrade him, I can't choose where it goes, and it went onto his active skill. So I didn't get to pick where it went there. I didn't really care that much about where it went, but you should note that for some commanders, the order of their skills can matter, because some skills might not be important to you depending on how you play the game. You should also know that with every single commander, their active skill is the most important, and you should always level that up to max first. So make sure you lock that skill, get it to level 5, because that's when it's the cheapest, and also just because it is the most impactful on your account, and it will give you the most value for the sculptures that you are using. As for upgrading your commanders to higher star levels, you have to use starlight sculptures, and these are fairly common to come across. They're not as rare as the actual commander sculptures themselves, and you will have an abundance of these once you reach the later stages of the game. In the earlier times of the game, you might be struggling for these types of sculptures a little bit more, but once you reach the end game, once you get really past your first 100 or so days of playing, you won't have issues with these sculptures, and really all you have to do, you can develop your commanders with them. There is an optimal order. I will just quickly double check it. So I have just done a quick double check. The best way to use your starlight sculptures in the best order, if you have these available to you. First of all, a bundle of starlight sculptures. This is the first one that you want to use. These take away your luck percentage up here. They are not very good for your luck. They only give you 5%. And then you want to use 2 blessed or star sculptures. These each give 20% luck, and that is definitely very good to help you get double value. And then you just use 3 normal sculptures, and that way you have a 75% chance to get a double trigger. This is going to give you the highest value. As you can see, I got the crit there, and that is just the best way to run these sculptures. And also, you're going to, as you notice, level up your commanders more. It is going to cost you more sculptures to actually take them to that max star level. So the final level, it's going to feel like you're never going to reach it, and it's going to take a lot of sculptures, but eventually you will reach it. So do keep that in mind as you level up. Again, there is an exponential cost with these commanders, and they will become more and more difficult to level up as you go on. Now, I'm sure that you've heard me talking about commanders leveling up and what they do a lot now, and you're probably interested into which commanders are the best. Which ones do you level up? And in the really early game, there are 2 things or 3 things you really want to focus on. The first one you always want to focus on is a peacekeeping commanders. Peacekeeping commanders are made to do the PvE content. In the really early stages of the game, you should just be killing tons of barbarians, destroying as many barbarian forts as possible, and just doing the PvE stuff, so player versus environment content, with your alliance. And we'll talk about alliances a bit later. So you need to be doing that a lot in the early game to get yourself tons of gems, tons of gold keys, lots of commander sculptures to upgrade your commanders. And that means in the really early stages of the game, you should be focusing more on those commanders who are good at destroying barbarians. And when we look at the epic commanders, there are a few very good options here. The first one was Boudica. I mentioned her because she's actually not too bad at fighting other players. If you do need to do that in the early game, I recommend skipping it if you can. But if you need to fight another player in the early game, maybe they're trying to attack you, Boudica is okay at protecting herself at least. And the reason you want to use these peacekeeping commanders is because they've got the peacekeeping talent tree, and more importantly, they've got the insight talent. This makes it so it costs 10 less action points to attack a barbarian, and while that doesn't seem like a lot, over time when you play the game for 1,000 days like I have, this is thousands of extra barbarians that you can destroy with peacekeeping commanders. Not to mention, they just do a lot more damage to barbarians as you upgrade their talents, and they'll get more experience points from killing barbs. So that means your secondary commanders as well. So if you use a peacekeeping commander with a non-peacekeeping commander that you're going to use to fight other players, If you use them together, that means the secondary to your peacekeeping commander will be getting a lot of extra experience, once again allowing you to level up your commanders faster and destroy other players quicker. So that's always a nice thing, and peacekeeping commanders will give you really good value in the early game. I generally recommend getting at least 1 or 2 peacekeeping commanders up until they've got both insight and also quick study, these 2 talents right here, leveled up at an absolute minimum. I do recommend going a bit further, probably up to double-edged sword and also up to thoroughbred, just because march speed's nice to get around a bit quicker, kill some barbarians faster, but double-edged sword and these talents here are going to give you a lot more damage and make it way easier to kill a few more barbarians. So I do recommend that. The end talent here, Curing Chant, not really useful. Even thoroughbred, you can skip it. So really, I just recommend getting quick study, getting insight, and then getting double-edged sword as quick as you can on your peacekeeping commander, and that way you can slap any commander that you really want to level up with them, and you can just start attacking barbarians. Generally, the 2 best peacekeeping commanders are going to be Boudica here and also Belisarius. Belisarius is a cavalry commander, so he's a bit more specific, but Boudica here, as you can see, she's integration, so you can use her with anybody, don't really need to be too worried about that. And actually, another peacekeeping commander of note is Lohar. You will get his sculptures through a specific event, and that event is called Lohar's Trials, where you get these little Lohar, like summon items, and you can summon a Lohar with them, and then you rally that Lohar with your alliance, and you kill it, and you can get Lohar sculptures. So that's how you get Lohar, and he's actually probably the easiest one to level up in the early game, just because you can get a ton of his sculptures and level up all of his stuff really quickly. Not to mention, he can give you 70% more experience from destroying barbarians, so he's probably the easiest one to get, but pretty much everybody can get him up very easily. But Boudica and Belisarius, they were a little bit harder to level up, and you definitely should keep that in mind. Lohar though, really easy to do, probably your number 1 priority. I did forget about him for a second there, but then it would be Boudica and then it would be Belisarius in terms of just peacekeeping commanders who are going to give you fairly decent value. In terms of the other type of commander, this is your fighting commander. And there are 3 real commanders for this. The best one is going to be Sun Tzu. He is an infantry commander, so I recommend most players in the early game try and focus a little bit on that infantry. And Sun Tzu's just got really, really powerful skills. He's got skill damage bonuses, which means his active skill here will deal more damage. He's got health, which is easily the best stat in Rise of Kingdoms. And he's got all damage reductions. All damage means that everything will be dealing 10% less damage to him, which is really powerful for an epic commander. That being said though, the most important thing for Sun Tzu is his active skill, and the reason it's so good is because it's got an AoE skill. This means it's going to hit more than one target, so you can damage lots of players at once, and that means you can get lots and lots of kills. So this is definitely the best epic commander for the early stages of the game. It's easily the strongest epic commander you can use, and he is just pretty good with his talents as well. He's got the infantry tree, which is great. And he's also got the skill tree, which is, in my opinion, the best tree in the game. So he's easily one of the stronger commanders to run in the early game. And if you're running infantry, which most players will be doing, Sun Tzu is your number 1 pick. If you're running cavalry, you're going to go with Baibars as your commander, and you will focus on him. He is another very strong commander. He's got cavalry, he's got the conquering tree, and he's got the skill tree. And he also does have AoE, which is very nice. Actually, an arguably stronger AoE than Sun Tzu. Also, you should note, he has the conquering tree, which has the buckler shield talent, which is a very, very strong talent to have. So his talent trees are also arguably a little bit stronger than Sun Tzu. The final epic commander you can look at is Kusunoki or Herman. Most players look at Kusunoki. Again, he has an AoE as well, and he is also an archer commander. Plus, he can remove a lot of debuffs, as you can see here. He dispels, which means removes any control effects, so there's silence, disarm. He can not be slown, you can't poison him, you can't exhaust him, and you can't remove his normal damage. So he's definitely a fairly powerful commander in that regard, and he's got a fairly strong AoE as well. So he's just a pretty good commander, and he's your pick if you focus on archer units. The third type of commander are your gathering commanders, and these commanders are also fairly strong. For a certain reason. Gathering resources is very, very important in the early game, in the late game, in the middle game. You're always going to need resources. In the early game, you'll need resources to upgrade stuff in your city. In the middle game, you're going to need resources to continue upgrading your city and fight players. And in the end game, you're going to be fighting players non-stop, so you need resources to constantly fight other players. And you get resources from these deposits. and we'll touch on this more later, but there are specific commanders you want for resource gathering, and in the early game, I do recommend getting these resource gathering commanders to at least like level 15 or so you can get a couple of these gathering masteries and start focusing on a bit of resources, and maybe even work towards the more the better, which gives you extra resources when you finish cleaning out a resource node. And resource nodes, if you don't know what they are just these things right here. So that is what those commanders do. They are a third priority just because in the early game you'll usually have pretty decent resources, but we will touch on them more later, and they're very important, especially for the mid game and definitely in the end game. So the quicker you get your resource commanders to a good level, the better. And I will recommend, if you get the option to buy a couple resource commander sculptures in some of these shops in game, I do recommend picking them up and trying to upgrade their second skill here. So whenever you get Joan of Arc sculptures, whenever you get Matilda sculptures, and whenever you get Queen Tamara of Georgia sculptures, upgrade their second skills, because trust me, you're going to need that gathering speed bonus on all three of those commanders, and it will just make your life much easier. So now that we've looked at some of the epic commanders in Rise of Kingdoms, and these commanders are definitely easier to get than the legendary commanders, I think it is important I do discuss legendary commanders. Unlike epic commanders, legendary commanders are way harder to max. I have very few max legendary commanders, as you can see, but when we look at my epic commanders, I have pretty much got every single one at the max level. So legendary commanders, they're way harder to max, they're way more expensive, but they're also much stronger. You should note though, in the early game, legendary commanders are not as powerful, just because there are better legendary commanders you will unlock later. So if you're in the early game, I wouldn't really recommend upgrading any legendary commanders. Save your legendary commander sculptures, save your stars, your legendary stars, because those are also important, just until you reach later stages of the game and get some better commanders. That being said, if you do get in a lot of legendary commanders from your tavern, so in here in the tavern, if you get a lot of legendary commanders from maybe your gold chest, you can certainly consider putting some points into those commanders to make them a little bit stronger, maybe leveling them up a few levels, but once again, I wouldn't recommend using any of these generic sculptures, which will give you more of the commander sculpture itself. So definitely, with legendary commanders, they're much stronger, they're much more powerful, but they're not your go-to pick for the start of the game, and you really should just ignore them until you hit later stages of the game where you get stronger commanders, such as, and I'll just say them, if you don't know what they are, it's okay, such as Zhuge Liang, such as Boudica Prime, such as Henry, Herman. All these other commanders are much stronger, and you've got other troop types as well. Liu Chu is an infantry commander, Nevsky is a cavalry commander. These are stronger commanders that, as of the time of recording, are much more powerful than any of the epic commanders really combined. They're just that powerful in comparison. So save those sculptures. Trust me, you will not regret it. You also should note that some legendary commanders that I'm showing won't show up for you because you might be in an earlier stage of the game. So don't worry about that. I was definitely confused for at least a solid 2 months as to why I couldn't see all of the commanders. You just can't see all of them until you hit an end stage of the game. So you might only be able to see commanders like Sundok, Cao Cao, you might only see Ishidas, and as you go on, the commanders will unlock gradually until they all just will appear once you hit Season 3, which is a certain stage of the game. So do keep that in mind, you might not be able to see all the commanders. Some of them will not show up until much later into the game, but that is okay because no one can use them even if they do have those commanders unlocked. While we're on the topic of commanders, I would like to talk about formations and equipment, and I will start off with formations just because they are a newer mechanic to the game. And the way formations work are they are something you unlock when you hit Season 2 of Rise of Kingdoms. That is after your first big KVK, and KVK is really simply just a map you get put in to fight other players on. So when you start the game, you'll start in Preparation Season, then you'll go to Season 1 where you fight other players, and then you'll go to Season 2, and once you hit Season 2 in the off season, before the actual KVK begins, before you fight people, you will get access to the building called the State Form. This building is a building that allows you to unlock armaments and formations. Armaments and formations are literally just like an extra bonus you can put on your commanders to make them a little bit more powerful. Each armament comes with a set of random stats when you do unlock it, so you could get archer stats, you could get infantry stats, for example, you could get cavalry siege, you could get all damage. The stats you get are randomized, and these armaments and formations really just serve as a way to make your commanders and your troops even more powerful. Like a commander's equipment and talents, armaments only work for your primary commander, so don't worry about your secondary commander, they won't receive any buffs. Each formation is literally just a way to give yourself free boosts. So for example, you've got the arch formation and the wedge formation. In my opinion, the two best for fighting other players. They just give you just a base amount of stats. You get 5% more skill damage with the wedge formation, and you get 5% more normal damage with the arch formation. You should note though, it doesn't really stop there. Each formation also has 4 armament slots. You've got a scroll, you've got an instrument, you've got a emblem, which is different for each armament, and then you've got a banner. So every single armament has 4 different slots that it has access to, and each one can have a different item, which gives you different stats. As you can tell, this is a bit of a scummy system with all the randomized items and randomized stats, but as you go on, you will get stronger armaments which have more stats on them. Armaments can also, on a rare chance, come with an inscription, which give them some extra bonus. I know this is a lot of writing and they're a bit complicated, but some are a little bit simple. Like this one here, the wielder's troops deal 2% more damage to someone with less than 20% units. Very, very simple. It's just an inscription that gives you a little bit of extra strength. There are different rarities of inscriptions as well. You've got your normal rarity. These are the fairly common ones. You'll get them quite often. You've got your rare inscriptions, and then you've got your legendary inscriptions. So rare, they're a little bit harder to get, but you should get them every now and again. And legendaries can only be gotten from very unique parts of the game, such as end game KVKs, or if you're extremely, extremely lucky. So it's definitely difficult to get these legendary inscriptions, but do keep in mind that legendary inscriptions are the most powerful. You should also note that each formation has different armaments, which are the little items on them. So these formation, right now the arch formation has a different type of armaments, so I can't just go and get my stuff from the previous formation I was showing. I can't take the stuff off this wedge formation and put them on the arch formation, since they're a different type of equipment and they stick with a different formation. So each formation, when we really get down to the crux of it, gives you a free boost, and then it has 4 slots for your equipments. Each equipment or an armament can have 3 different stats and up to 2 inscriptions, which could be legendary, rare, or common. So there's a lot of stuff with formations. They only work on a secondary commander, and you do get them in Season 2. If you're wondering how to get the armaments themselves, these little pieces of equipment, they're actually really easy to get. There's tons of game modes which give them, but the main way here is through the state form. In the state form, you'll be able to spend your action points to dispatch troops and also to travel with your troops. The way it works is you go in the state form, you push go, you usually just push auto team up, and then you dispatch your commanders to go and get you some items. You should also note that when your commanders are dispatched, you can still use them. So even if they are going to get stuff, it's not like you're locked out of using them. You can still use them to gather. You can still use them to fight other players. It doesn't really matter. This is more of just a symbolic screen, really. The other method is traveling, and traveling is even quicker than dispatching. You just go in with any commander and you push the travel button, and you'll be given either an armament or you'll be given some of the state form currency to upgrade it, which are called a Sage's Testimony. So you'll pretty much guarantee an armament or a Sage's Testimony, and when you travel, you will have a chance of getting an epic or legendary armament, and the same thing with a dispatch. Whenever you get an epic or legendary, you will get a cutscene. You can usually just skip it, and then you will be given whichever armament you do get. You can also select 3 preferred formations. I personally recommend doing the arch formation, the wedge formation, and the triple line formation, just because these all have some value against other players. So arch formation, you can use it against players. Wedge, it gives you some skill damage, and triple line makes you a bit faster, so that's good at just running away from people. If you are running a march that does need that, that's more endgame stuff, but definitely pick either one of these 3 formats, or pick all 3 of these, or you could consider picking the line formation to make your gathering a bit faster, but I just recommend putting this on the commanders and not worrying about the armaments themselves. So just pick the line formation, don't worry about the armaments, and then use the wedge formation, the arch formation, and the triple line inside of both your traveling and your dispatch screens, since that's where you're going to get the most value. You should also note that when you get an armament you don't really like, you can actually recycle that armament. If you find it, you can push recycle, and it gives you some currency. These currencies are different. If you scrap an epic armament or if you scrap an elite armament, these are the lower value armaments, you get a silver coin, and the value of the coin will depend on if it has any inscriptions or not. So if I remove an inscripted armament, this epic one right here, I get 4 silver coins, but if it has no inscription, I only get 2, and if it's an elite armament, I only get 1 coin. You can scrap multiple by selecting the multi-select here and then removing a bunch at once. That definitely works. And you can also scrap them by doing select all if you've locked the armaments that you do like. So if you have an armament that you like, go click it when you find it in your inventory and lock it so you can't remove it. You should also know that if you remove a legendary armament, you actually get a golden coin, which are also used to purchase different items. These items are available in the courier station, which is a building that you can build. I think it's like City Hall 12. And in the courier station, you can use silver coins to buy either more armaments, sages testimonies, formation choice chests, or transmutation stones. The other option that you can buy is with your legendary coins, and with these or these gold coins, you can buy an inscription shard chest, which allows you to get an inscription to put onto your armaments, or you have a chance of getting transmutation stones. Every single time you open one of these inscription shard chests, you will also get an inscription shard to purchase an inscription to put onto your armament. So that's definitely a nice thing, but once again, a little bit of RNG, or actually quite a bit of RNG involved here. Whenever you're looking to use your silver currencies, I recommend just buying transmutation stones. They are the best value for your money. And in terms of inscription shard chests, whenever you get them, you can buy them. There's really nothing else to spend those gold coins on at the time of recording. So inscription shard chest, definitely the best value for you, I guess. And for your silver coins, just buy transmutation stones. Now, if you're wondering what a transmutation stone does, well, it allows you to re-roll the stats on an armament that is inscribed. If the armament does not have an inscription, you cannot transmutate it. So as you can see here, I don't have the option. But if it has an inscription, I can transmutate it. And I'm able to lock the stats that I like and transmutate the other stat I do not want. It is a chance, again, you don't get to pick which stat you get, but the more lock stats, the more expensive it is, and the less lock stats, the less expensive it is to do. If I could push the transmutate, which I can't right now, but if I did, I would get another random stat, and I can choose to keep it, or I can choose to get rid of it and transmutate again, or just stick with my old stats. So that's definitely a nice thing to do. It kind of gets rid of the RNG, but it is still a little bit RNG based. But keep in mind, the more locked things, the more expensive it is, and the less locked stats, the less expensive it is to transmutate. The next thing, fairly similar to armaments, is your equipment. And equipment is much less RNG based. There's almost no RNG in this system, besides one thing which I will talk about soon. But the way equipment works is you get blueprints, and with those blueprints you get materials, and with those materials you can build some form of equipment. You can make it, and then that's a new piece of equipment that you can put on your commanders to make them a little bit stronger. With materials, there's a ton of ways to get them. A very simple way is your blacksmith. You can produce them for completely free. It just takes time to produce. So as you can see here, if I remove these materials and I put them back in, it cost me nothing. I could do it with any material. I could do leather and iron mixed. I could do one of every single material if I wanted. It doesn't matter. It just takes time to forge these new materials. It's just one of those things in the game. So as time goes on, you can forge the materials, and it is completely free to do. So this costs you nothing, and it just comes with building the blacksmith itself. Some other game modes can also give you materials, whether it be KVK, whether it be unique events that come around every now and again that have material chests in them to pick your materials. But really, the main way you'll get them for free is just through the blacksmith and events that do come around. With those materials, you can forge your equipment. You should note that with equipment, there's also an option to dismantle it. So if you have a piece of equipment you don't need, you can dismantle it, and you get back some of the materials that you spent. If it's an epic or a below, so if it's epic equipment, or it's a common, or if it's a rare, or if it is just a green, I think it's an uncommon here. If you dismantle it, you get every single material you spent. If you dismantle a legendary piece of equipment though, you only get half of the materials you spent, which is extremely expensive. You can also combine materials to make them a higher tier. So for example, if I combine this leather, I make an epic leather, and I can combine it again, and then I can make a legendary leather. And legendary is the highest quality currently in the game. So do keep that in mind. That is how you can get higher quality materials, even with the commons. It's not like it's rare to get legendary materials. It is just a matter of grinding them out and combining them to make materials. The game will automatically combine them for you if you needed it. So as you can see here, the game is going to combine 68 of these normal irons to make another 17 advanced irons for me. So automatically do it if you push the quick forge. You don't have to do it yourself. We should also note that legendary equipment obviously much harder to get than epic equipment, and legendary equipment also has unique systems attached. So for example, with legendary equipment you can refine it, which allows you to pretty much give yourself a chance of getting a special talent, which allows you to get more stats on that piece of equipment. So if you have a special talented piece of equipment, which I can show you, you will have more stats on it. So for example here, this is special talented, I get 3.5% extra archer attack. If I used a not special talented piece, I'm only going to get the 11% and I don't have any bonuses. So that's what a special talent does. And another option you do have with your equipment is to awaken it. This is going to set you back once again either a few materials, or it's going to set you back a blueprint or an iconic crystal, and this just gives you a different type of stat. So as you can see here, you've got equipment attributes and you've also got iconic attributes. Iconic attributes give you different types of stats. Equipment attributes give you just a normal stat percentage when you first make the equipment. Whenever you iconic it, there are different tiers up to tier 5, and this is just a progression based system. The more you level it up, the more iconic levels you will get, and once you hit level 5, your equipment is fully maxed. So that means with your equipment, you can forge it, you can special talent it, and you can also awaken it to make it stronger. You should note that only legendary equipment can be awakened, but epic equipment, common equipment, even the advanced equipment and the rare equipment, they can all be special talented. So you can special talent your epic pieces, and that is certainly normal. I have some special talented epic pieces on my Boudica here, because legendary equipment is really expensive, but epic equipment, it's very cheap, and you should have quite a few pieces by the time you start to fight other players. So you can see I've special talented this epic equipment, and it is not rare to have some special talented epics or some special talented blue or purple gear just to use on your commanders. So special talented epics, definitely a fairly common thing to see. The next thing I do want to talk about is your alliance. I'm only going to skim over this because as you progress in the game, you will learn a lot more about alliances. But alliances are really a place where you can join other players and you can build territory with them and fight other people. Usually, once a kingdom is fully in peace mode, there will be 1 or 2 alliances that control the kingdom, and the kingdom will be working together to fight against other kingdoms. That's really how the game works. With your alliance, there are a few very important mechanics. The first one is the help mechanic. So whenever you upgrade a building, start a research, or whenever you heal troops, you can push this help button and it sends a request to your allies, who can then help you through this menu. So as you can see, that player just helped me, and it actually sped up my healing process. It's almost done. It was meant to be a 5-minute thing. It's been about 3 seconds. So each time a player helps you, you will gain some amount of speed ups for free that will just instantly finish the task for you. Keep in mind, it doesn't cost you anything to help another player. It's just a small button click, and it's just a bonus of being in an alliance. Another one is your territory. You can have territory resource earnings. So whenever you're in an alliance, if you've built onto a specific territory piece, these are called alliance pits or alliance resource nodes. You can gain a few thousand resources an hour for both the alliance and the players in it. So most alliances, if you just go into that territory section, you can claim a bunch of free resources. Another thing with this is that you also get alliance gifts. This includes gifts from destroying barbarian forts, so more forts you kill, the more gifts you will get. And another one includes gifts from whenever people spend money. Some bundles will give you an alliance chest, which can give you free rewards. Once again, it costs you nothing. It only depends on whether or not someone is spending money. An alliance also has a technology section. It has development technology, territory, and war technology, plus alliance skills, which are more of an endgame thing. But in the early game, development is something people care about a lot, and it's just stuff that gives you more speed. So for example, you can gain extra research speed by being an alliance, you can build faster, you can also gather wood faster whenever you're on territory. Stuff like that is definitely very, very nice, and this is one of the more good things about being in an alliance. The other thing that's really good about being an alliance, you get holy sites, which once again give you even more buffs. Some give you action points, like this holy site over here. 20% recovery is a lot, plus 20% healing speed. There's also shrines that just give you really normal amounts of buffs. So for example, this one gives you 5% research speed, This one up top over here is going to give you probably a little bit of a gathering speed bonus. So being an alliance is very good for that reason, and it's just going to allow you to get a lot of extra buffs and important things. The next thing I would like to talk about is upgrading your city and the real things you want to focus. In Rise of Kingdoms, unlike other games, and I'm always going to talk about this, you want to rush your city hall. This is like your town hall if you've played Clash of Clans. You want to get it to level 25 pretty much as soon as possible. Unlike games like Clash of Clans, there is no need to worry about getting all your buildings to the same level. The faster you get your city hall to 25, the faster you unlock things that will let you upgrade stuff faster, the quicker you unlock stronger troops, the quicker you unlock better equipment, the quicker you unlock better technology, the quicker you unlock buildings and just different parts of the game. Because, for example, you don't even get equipment until you're City Hall 16, you don't get formations until you're at least City Hall 21, so the quicker you level up that City Hall, the better. When leveling up your City Hall, there are a few buildings that you should pretty much always upgrade, and there are a few that you're forced to upgrade. Every single time, no matter what the game tells you, you should always upgrade your Alliance Center, because this will affect how many times you can request for help. If your Alliance Center is level 1, you can only get 5 helps, which is really not that many, but if it's level 25 like mine is, you can get 30 helps, which is a lot of helps. It's going to knock down, not even joking, thousands of days worth of upgrade time over like the course of playing the game. So definitely level up this Alliance Center, #1 priority the second you hit City Hall, no matter what level it is. If you're going from City Hall 10 to 11, your Alliance Center should go from level 10 to 11 the second you finish your City Hall upgrade. You will also often be forced to do certain upgrades with your City Hall. I don't have the list of them on me, but you'll notice as you go when you push upgrade, it's going to tell you which buildings you must upgrade, but one of them is always going to be this city wall. If your city wall is not at the right level, you cannot upgrade your city hall, and to upgrade your city wall, you need to upgrade your tavern, and to upgrade the tavern, you need to upgrade a quarry. So always, you'll have one quarry at a minimum level at your city hall level, you'll have one of the taverns at your city hall level, and you'll also have one wall at your city hall level. That is an almost guaranteed thing, and that is just going to happen. Other than that, you may be told to upgrade your storehouse, maybe a farm, maybe a troop thing like the barracks or the archer range, or even the siege workshop, and each of these will have their own prerequisites. You should also note though that when you hit City Hall 25, everything will start to cost one of these unique items called a Master's Blueprint. Master's Blueprints can only be gotten for 2,000 gems, and they are the only way to take a building from level 24 to level 25. So do keep that in mind, you need those to level up the rest of your city, but in the early game they do not matter and they're much more of a later game thing. Also, with your academy and researching, I definitely recommend that you do upgrade this academy to probably at least 2 levels of your city hall. So if you level city hall like 16, at least have academy 14, but usually you will have it at the same level as your city hall, unless you're trying to be as quick as possible when upgrading. There are also things that can increase your upgrade speed. We already spoke about alliances, that is one way. Another way is through runes. Runes are really a special thing that you can grab from a temple, from one of these shrines located around the map, and they just give you a small percentage boost. Here is an example of a rune. This one is spawned at the Lost Temple, and they spawn after you kill any Guardian. Any Guardian you kill is guaranteed to drop a rune, and they're completely free to pick up, and you can pick them up infinite times. They do have a limited duration, as you can see here, 6 hours, but once you pick up a rune, you'll be given whatever boost it gives you. There are a few specific runes. There's a rune of Artifice, there's a rune of Wisdom, and there's a rune of Leadership, and there's also a rune of, I think it's like Warfare. Those are your 4 main runes. One of them is for training troops, that's the rune of Warfare. The rune of Leadership gives you both a research and building speed boost. The rune of Wisdom gives you a research speed boost, and the rune of Artifice will give you a building speed boost. So getting one of these runes is always nice. It's completely free. All you have to do is kill the Guardians at a temple, or even just killing Guardians that are not even at a temple, just at a holy site or shrine, can also give you runes. So do keep that in mind. Runes are from anywhere that you can kill a Guardian at, and they will help you pretty much level up your account for completely free. Another way to level up your account is also through economic technologies in your academy. As you can see here with the academy, there are a ton of technologies, and there's the economic, and then there is also the military technology. If you are looking to level up your account as quick and efficient as possible, you want to focus economic technology as much as possible. Some that are important: masonry, you can get 15% building speed. Writing is a 10% research speed bonus. You've also got engineering, which is a 35% building speed bonus, and mathematics, which is a 15% research speed bonus. All of these are very important to unlock as soon as you can. And as you level up your account, there are optimal levels for each one. In the early game, really, I just get masonry and writing to level 5 as quick as possible. But once you hit City Hall 16, you want to start getting engineering and mathematics to different levels. Like really, you get engineering to probably like level 6 or 7 and mathematics to about level 6 or 7. And then you will level it up again a little bit towards the end of the game around City Hall 23 or 24. So these are also important technologies and they will help you on top of the alliance buffs, on top of the runes, and definitely on top of the helps that you do get from your alliance center. There are also 3 buildings which require a different currency for you to upgrade. These are the watchtower, you've also got your castle here, and also the state form. Each of these buildings is going to require a currency that can be gotten in a different way. To get the watchtower currency, you're looking to get an arrow of resistance. This is fairly common. You'll get arrows of resistance quite a lot. You'll see a ton of them as you play the game. They're not too rare. And the way you get them is you just kill barbarians. As you kill barbarians, you're going to get arrows of resistance, and they will just be sent straight into your inventory pretty much. So if we look at some of the barbarians I've defeated, I'm sure I got some arrows of resistance out of 1 or 2 of them. As you can see here, I got 12 arrows of resistance on 1 march. My other marchers probably also have some arrows of resistance somewhere in the barbarians that they have defeated. So you'll get a lot of these arrows of resistance. I got 13 here, 14 here, and there's some events like the Lohar event that will come around and give you even more arrows. As for the castle is the hardest one to upgrade in my opinion. The currency you need for the castle are these Books of the Covenant. Books of the Covenant are really annoying to get, and the way you get them is from destroying a barbarian fort. You need thousands of Books of the Covenant. It's ridiculous how many you'll need, and you're only going to get like 3 or 4 of these whenever you do destroy a barb fort. So I wouldn't be too upset if it's going to take a very long time to max your castle, and that is definitely quite annoying. The last currency is for the state form, and we discussed it before. It is those sages' testimonies that you can get from traveling or dispatching, or you can buy them in the courier station. You can also purchase all 3 of those currencies with gems inside of the normal shop, inside the other tab. Books of the Covenant and also the Arrows of Resistance are 10 gems. Sage's Testimonies are also 10 gems. So they're all fairly cheap to get. But when you need 50,000 books, it's 50,000 gems. That's not very cheap, and that can be difficult to do. And also, a lot of players end up spending gems on their Books of the Covenant, just because how long it would take if you didn't spend any of those gems. So now that I've kind of spoken about some places you can spend your gems, so for example, your Books of the Covenant inside of the normal shop here, there are also other ways to spend your gems, like the Master's Blueprints, and ways you can get more value for your gems. Of course, I have 50,000 of them almost right now, and you might think that's a lot. It's really not that many, but there are definitely spaces to spend your gems to get more value, and there are places that have much lower value to spend gems. For most players throughout the whole entire game, there's going to be 1 event or 2 events that really get the majority of your gems. These events are going to be events that are going to give you commander sculptures, or events that will give you equipment, just materials or blueprints. There are tons of events. There's the Wheel of Fortune, which I can't show you right now because it's not out at the moment, but it usually lines up with the Mightiest Governor. There is also the Esmeralda's Prayer, which I also can't show you. It's not here right now, but that can give you points. There is the Dig event, once again, not here right now, but that can give you some more materials. And then there is also the 7k gem event, which I can show you. This is an event where you can spend 7,000 gems to unlock like a premium tier of rewards, which gives you a ton of stuff. You get legendary commander sculptures, you get materials, you get even more materials, you can get more legendary. There's like a ton of items inside of this event that you can get for only 7,000 gems, and you pretty much get every single gem back. So this is one of the places people spend gems, and there's also a special way to spend your gems. Every now and again, an event that will come around is called the More Than Gems event, and whenever you spend gems during this event, you will get some free stuff in return. So for example, when you spend 25,000 gems in that event, you get 12 gold heads back for free, pretty much. You just spend those gems, you get those gold heads, and you can spend them anywhere. You could spend them in an event like the Wheel of Fortune. You can spend them in your VIP shop. Let's say you want to buy some speed ups. You could spend them on Master's Blueprints. You can spend them on Books of the Covenant. You can spend them on VIP points. Those are going to be some ways that you could spend those gems. Speaking of VIP points though, that is the best way to spend gems. VIP is easily the most important thing for any account in Rise of Kingdoms because it is the way you get pretty much anything for free. There are 18 VIP levels in the game right now. All 18 are fairly good value, but in the early game, every single gem you own should go right into VIP without fail. I wouldn't even bat an eye to it. You should be pumping every gem you own into VIP, maybe save up for those more than gem events and then use them all, but VIP should be a #1 priority. The reason this is the case is because of your free VIP chest. I know in the early game when you look at it, if you're like VIP, let's say VIP 3, it's very, very minimal. It's like, what is all this rubbish? I don't actually care about the trash in this chest if this is all I'm going to get. But as you level up your VIP, your rewards are going to get better. You're going to get exclusive buffs like a second builder for free at VIP 6 and stuff like building speed, gathering speed. You get stuff like action points and research speed. And then once you hit VIP 10, you get a legendary commander sculpture every single day. This is going to help you maxing legendary commanders so much, it's not funny. If you're not VIP 10, you're going to have to wait like 3 years to max one commander, but with VIP 10, it gets knocked down to 1 year. When you get to VIP 12, you can max like pretty much almost 2 commanders per year, and at VIP 14, you can max close to 3 legendary commanders per year. So VIP is the most important thing. You should be putting the majority of your gems in it until you hit VIP 14, and then you can kind of slow down. The last level of VIP that really matters to lower spenders and free-to-play players is VIP 16, because that's when you're going to get materials every day, and these materials are going to add up to like 24 legendary materials per year, which is pretty decent. That being said though, VIP 16 wouldn't be a key focus for a lot of players. I just mainly focus on getting to VIP 14 as soon as you can. It might take you about a year to really reach this level if you're a very active player or if you spend some money, or it might take you a little bit longer. It took me around a year and a half to almost 2 years before I hit VIP 14. But I also made a few mistakes with my gems in the early game, so I'm not the best example, but some players can hit VIP 14, I've seen it in a year as a free-to-play low spender, and if you're in a good alliance and people are spending a lot of money on the game, you can get VIP points for free from these chests that you do get. So as you can see, with this wood chest, I got 10. If someone gets a gold chest, which means they fully bought out a bundle, which is very expensive, so they're a bit rare, you can get 2,000 VIP points for free, and that's the main way you get them. As you can see, I got 2,000 here. That is the main way you get them, either spending gems or getting them from other people who spend money, or spending money yourself on super value bundles, which can give you VIP. So if I go in here, every single bundle is going to give me some amount of VIP, and when you max a bundle, I think you get like 75,000 points. Keep in mind though, maxing a bundle is like $400, so it's definitely not cheap, definitely very expensive. But that is the 3 main ways you can get VIP. Sometimes some rare events will give you like 200-300 points, but those are super rare and you pretty much never see them, and those points are negligible. Another way you can get VIP is just this little chest up here, and over the 1,000 days I played, I think I've gotten 200,000 VIP from it. It's really going to give you around 200 VIP per day, which is decent, but it's not too game changing. It is definitely though going to help you with your leveling up. If I didn't have this chest, I'd be at around 1 million VIP points, but with it, I'm about 1.28 million, which is definitely decent. But like I said, definitely best VIP level is level 10 to get as soon as possible. In the really early game, level 6 is super important for that second builder, and then level 12, and then also level 14. Those are your 4 really main VIPs, and in the end game, VIP 15 is really good just for the hospital healing speed, but otherwise, level 6, 10, and also 12 and 14 are the most important and should be the space you spend pretty much all your gems until you reach the end game, and you might spend some of them on your castle, some on your commanders, and some on your equipment. But like I said, especially with VIP, only spend your gems when there is the More Than Gems event, so you can get some extra gold heads in return for leveling up your VIP. Now, the last thing I would like to talk about is your gathering and how you can really gather, and there are some things you should note about gathering. With Rise of Kingdoms, when it comes to gathering resources, there are 4 main resources. There's food, there's wood, there's stone, and then there's gold. Those are your 4 key resources, and all of them can be gathered. The 2 most common are wood and also food. You're going to get the most amount of those when you do gather them. So for example, a level 6 food node will give you 1.26 million. and a level 6 wood node will also give you 1.26 million wood. So they are the most common, but when you look at, for example, a level 6 stone node, you're only going to get a total of 945,000, and if you can even find a level 6 gold node, you're only going to get around 420,000 gold. So it's definitely much harder to get gold than it is to get food and wood, and it's much harder to get stone than it is to get food and wood as well. So those are the two more rare resources, and they're harder to get, but they're not the most important for a lot of players. In the early game, gold is pretty much useless to you. It's only used on some rare technology, and you'll usually have enough gold from just producing it in your city, or from events that will give you some tokens for those resources. That being said though, wood and food and stone are going to be your three most important in the early game. It's going to cost you hundreds of millions of stone to level up your wall and your city hall. Same thing with food and wood. And it's going to cost a lot of resources to level up your technology. Especially once you reach these higher level technologies, it can get really, really expensive. And some of them can cost you like 50 million total resources. With your wall and your city hall, it can cost you like 200 million total resources, which is a lot. So gathering is very, very important, and making sure you gather the resources you need. There are some ways though that you can gather a little bit quicker. One is by having high level gathering commanders. Gathering commanders, you can just push this button on the filter up here. You select gathering, and you can see all the gathering commanders in the game. Since your talents only matter on the primary commanders, leveling up your elite commanders, so your blue ones, and leveling up the green commander Centurion here are the best ways to get 4 really easy gathering marches. Once you have 4 commanders with talent level 37, that's all you need to get superior tools to max, then you can gather really, really fast. Superior tools is a really good way to get a ton of gathering speed really quickly, and it's going to allow you to get a ton of very, very valuable resources, since it's a bonus to every single resource. Some commanders are better at gathering other resources as well. I will just tell you each commander what they're good at. Centurion, he is a generic gatherer. He can gather any resource at the same speed. Gaius Marius, he is better at gathering food. Saka is a generic gatherer. She can gather anything. Constance, she's kind of generic, but she's technically better at gathering wood. Queen Tamara of Georgia, she's very good at gathering wood as well. Matilda of Flanders is very good at gathering stone. Cleopatra is also good at gathering stone. Ishida is a food gathering commander. Sundok is the only gold gathering commander in the game. And Joan of Arc is another generic gathering commander. She can gather anything at the same speed. So those commanders, that is the specialty that they can gather, and any commander level 37 is the most important for a gathering commander, because that is when you unlock superior tools to level 5, because as you can see, if I just quickly show you, it only takes 37 talent points exactly to get a commander up to superior tools level 5. So level 37 gather is the most important, and as you work towards them, these 4 talents here are important. So the mastery for each resource is good, and the more the better is also a good talent to have, because it gives you extra resources. And then superior tools is the last one that really matters to you. So having at least 5 gathering commanders with superior tools level 5, I do recommend, because then you can gather with 5 marches very effectively, and you can gather pretty much any resource in the game at that point. Also with gathering, there is gathering equipment. I recommend for any player really, just make the blue pieces here. Each commander can have 4 pieces like at the max, and that is just perfectly fine. So getting blue pieces of equipment, I recommend 2 pieces per commander. It doesn't matter which, just any 2 pieces. You'll be fine to just gather with that. So having at least 5 marches with a minimum of 2 pieces of equipment is definitely recommended, and you will get a ton of extra resources by just doing that. The other option for you when gathering is having a farm account. I have 2 farms. I have my Siege Syndicate and my Cav Syndicate. These are really just farm accounts, and farm accounts are good because there is a way that you can actually transfer resources from your main account to your farm, or from your farm account to your main account. So having a farm account literally allows you to have double the gathering commanders, gathering double the resources, and it's just going to literally double down on the amount of speed that you do gain when it comes to gathering. So having a gathering farm account is really, really amazing, and it is very, very nice to have. Once again, the same stuff applies. Get as many gathering commanders, at least 5, to level 37, and give them and a little bit of gathering equipment. I spent some money on this farm, so don't worry, I've got the epic gear. It doesn't make that big of a difference. This farm was meant for a different project, so really just giving him some gathering gear is really good, and then just logging in maybe even just twice a day and sending them out to do some gathering is going to net you a couple million resources. As you can see, I've been gathering just gold on this account mainly, and in the last 2 days, I've gotten myself a nice 8 million. It's not too much, but it's definitely a substantial amount to the point where it is worth having a farm account. I recommend for each main account you have, 2 farms is usually pretty decent, especially if you're a lower spender who's not going to be whaling too much on the game. So 2 farms, easy level to have farms on. It's going to be fairly decent to manage. They're not going to be too tiring. Some people have like 10, 20 farms, but having at least 2 is perfectly fine, and just treating them as an account that you mainly focus on for farming is important. I will tell you one thing with your farms though, try and level up the way you transfer resources. This is through the trading post, because as your trading post levels up, you can save more and more resources. So as you can see, this farm right now has a 23% tax rate, but if I get this up to about level 21, which is what I'm focusing on, it will be 15%, which is an 8% reduction. So that means I can keep 8% more resources that I do earn. So the lower the tax rate, the better for any account. So try leveling up that trading post for your farm account so you can give resources to your main a little bit more efficiently. It doesn't matter what level your main trading post is, it can still receive all the resources and it doesn't get taxed again. So only the trading post on your farm account matters. Otherwise, the one in your main account doesn't matter unless you're transferring resources on that account. So leveling up your trading post on your farm, very good to do. It's going to save you a lot of resources, and just having a farm account in general is going to help you make even more resources. Now, the last thing I will talk about is the different seasons of Rise of Kingdoms. This can be very, very confusing for a lot of players, especially if you've never played the game before. As someone who's obviously played the game a lot, I mean, it's not very fair of me just to assume that everybody does have a knowledge of all the seasons. So in Rise of Kingdoms, there are different seasons which serve different roles. When you first begin the game, you'll be put into a preparation season kingdom, which is a kingdom that is just beginning. Seasons in the preparation, they're covered in fog. The whole kingdom has fog on it. You can't really get to every part of the map. All the passes and all the PvE content might be locked. So in the first day, maybe you can only kill up to level 5 barbarians, but on day 2 of the kingdom, you can kill level 3 barbarians. And maybe on day 20, the level 2 pass unlocks and you can destroy it or basically take control of it to get a bunch of rewards. This is probably one of the more fun parts of the game, at the beginning at least. And it's when you start working your account, you find an alliance, there's a big battle to take control of the kingdom and get into the center zone right here. And everyone's pretty much just going at it. It's pretty much a free-for-all, and it's just the most insane and intense part of the game. So this is definitely very important, this beginning season, and this is where most players will start the game, and it's where you can go through the monument and gather all these extra and cool rewards. So as you can see, as time goes on, these monument stages will complete and you will gain certain rewards, whether it be gems, unlocking holy sites, getting more gems, the ability to attack passes. All of that stuff will come as time progresses, and once an alliance controls the Lost Temple, the kingdom will enter usually a state of peace, and everybody will start to work together for the next season, and that season is going to be your first KVK. If you don't know what KVK is, and I'm guessing if you're listening at this bit you don't know what KVK is just a form of the game where you fight against other kingdoms. So now, instead of fighting inside your own kingdom, you're going to be placed onto a temporary map, and you will be fighting another kingdom or another group of kingdoms. Usually when it comes to KVKs, it's going to be multiple kingdoms who choose to fight with each other against a different group of kingdoms. And similar to your first main map, as time goes on, different things will open, higher level troops or barbarians will be unlocked, and you can fight towards the center of the map, and whoever controls this center bit, the Great Ziggurat, is the winner of that KVK. So that's simply how KVK works. You fight against other kingdoms. It's just, again, a massive fight to see who can win. And KVKs are going to be your friend. These are going to be the main thing that you play in Rise of Kingdoms. And your commanders, your equipment, your troops are all geared up to play these KVKs and destroy other players. That's where the real fun of the game comes in. That movement, that free moving of your troops to kill other players is always very fun. And there's rallies, there's destroying people's cities, there's burning flags, all of this cool stuff that does come with the game. So definitely KVKs are what you play the game for. They are the fun part of the game, and they are the most important bit of the game, really. So this is what you're going to end up working towards. It is going to be working towards KVK. You'll start off in KVK 1, then as KVK 1 ends, you'll enter an off season, which is where you can gain more resources, upgrade your city a bit more, and then you'll enter KVK 2, and whoever wins there, or really anyone, even if you win or lose, you'll enter KVK 3, and this is when you've kind of reached the end game. In KVK 3, you unlock every single commander. It's where the big players start to come in. Your city should be pretty much maxed or close to max at this point. You probably won't have tier 5 units, but that is okay. And you will have access to, like I said, every single legendary commander. So this is where the game really begins. And from that point on, you can start watching my end game guides and my more advanced commentaries on the game and more advanced advice. So now, if you did enjoy this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. I have tons of guides on the channel. I've made like 300 something videos. They're all pretty much guides on getting value or talking about updates that are coming to the game. So if you want to get more value for your account, if you found this guide useful, if you found me destroying my vocal cords very useful as well, then subscribing is the best way to show appreciation for that, and I definitely do appreciate when you guys subscribe. As you can see, I'm the biggest channel in the Rise of Kingdom sphere, so people subscribing supports me a lot, and I definitely appreciate it a ton. So if you subscribe, thank you very much. Hopefully this video was useful to any new players. I'm sure there's going to be some influxes of new players. We're adding new civilizations and stuff very soon. So it's definitely going to be a pretty fun time in Rise of Kingdoms. And I'm sure that if you're playing in these early seasons, you're going to find the game very fun. If you made some mistakes with your account, I'll just put it out there. Trust me, just keep enjoying the game as you're enjoying it. Whatever you find fun, this is a game at the end of the day. You don't have to follow the advice I gave you. You don't have to stress too much about getting maximum value for your account. Even sometimes I do dumb things just for the funs of it. For example, I expertise Cyrus, which some would say was a dumb thing, but I thought he was a cool commander and he wasn't the worst at the time. So if you are in that early game stage and you've made some mistakes with your account, trust me, you will still be fine as long as you haven't destroyed your account or done ridiculous things that have made it super weak. You might only need to spend an extra month or so behind some of the other players, which as you reach the end game, that gap will close and tighten as long as you follow the main principles of today's video. So just have fun with the game. Trust me, if you're a new player, it's a fairly fun game. You'll probably start to become more and more angry with it as time goes on, or you'll be like me and you'll get extremely hooked. So if anyone enjoyed this video, you found it useful, consider subscribing. Now I just want to say thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.